We are going to introduce, each person's going to introduce themselves when they get ready to give a particular section out of each one of the programs. We're going to run through the application, and we're going to do it a little differently than what you may be used to in past years. In past years, we have pretty well covered just the changes from the previous years, but we felt that this year we really needed to go through and do what we would term a full training. And the reasons for that are that from the applications that we've seen, it certainly seems like there's some refreshing that needs to happen as to your knowledge of the programs. And so, and one of the other reasons is that we have seen a lot of errors that shouldn't have been made, you know, if you were really up to speed on some of the most recent changes to the program, et cetera. So in nothing more than an effort to make life easier for you and make it to where that when you're giving us an application, that it's not being kicked back to you having to fix a lot of different things in that application. And so hopefully this will help you. We've got to make sure that these funds that we give out are done correctly. HUD is very unforgiving when there are mistakes that are made. And we don't really cherish the idea of having to pay monies back that you've already spent on projects. And so we want to try to avoid that. So it's a partnership. We need your help, and I think you need ours as well. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. And I think we're going to start out with Danette Carr, our allocation supervisor.
Hello, as Darrell said, my name is Danette Carr, and I'm just going to start off with the introduction to the Home Investment Program. Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development designated state home investment partnership program participating jurisdiction for the state of Oklahoma. The first thing I would like to stress is potential applicants must certify that they have read the 2022 Home Program Process Procedures and Topical Guidance. It is a separate document available on OFA's website. This document provides additional and more detailed guidance on various home program and OFA requirements. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Lawton, and Norman are communities that are HUD designated participating jurisdictions and receive direct annual allocations of home program funds from HUD. Therefore, OFA does not accept applications for developments within the city limits of these cities. Applications for home funds will be accepted from within the Tulsa Home Consortium, provided the proposed developments are not situated within the city limits of Tulsa. The home eligible entities are state recipients, units of local government, including cities, towns, counties, and Indian tribes. We have CHODOs. CHODO is a community housing development organization, is a private nonprofit organization that meets certain qualifications prescribed in the home regulation. OFA will designate organizations as CHODOs only after evaluating qualifications. Subrecipients. A subrecipient is a public agency or nonprofit organization selected by OFA to administer all or a portion of the home program. It may or may not also qualify as a CHODO. Subrecipients administer programs, not projects. An entity administering a single project would not be doing so as a subrecipient. Subrecipients may administer part of a program for OFA. They do not have to administer the entire program. We have nonprofit developers, for-profit developers. For-profit developers are only eligible to apply for rental activities in conjunction with affordable housing tax credits. Home eligible activities, home buyer.
So the one thing that I would like to stress about home buyer, and I think everybody is probably well aware of by now, that housing counseling is a requirement effective August 1st, 2021, and no longer is home buyer education alone allowed. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Sandra McGugan. I am the Oklahoma Housing Compliance Development Supervisor. And then I will hand it back over to Jeanette.
Okay, the following is a list of forms of assistance for home eligible activities under home buyer. We have acquisition, acquire homes for resale to individuals, acquisition and rehabilitation, acquire and rehabilitate substandard homes for resale to individuals, new construction. We also have home buyer assistance, provides down payment and or closing costs assistance, or reduce the monthly carrying cost of a loan for individuals purchasing affordable housing. If a home ownership unit has not been sold to a home eligible home buyer household within 9 months of completion of the construction or rehabilitation, the home ownership unit must be converted to a home rental unit. For nonprofit applicants proposing to construct home assisted housing units for sale, after a unit is sold, any proceeds deriving from the sale of the unit shall be treated as program income and paid back to OFA. Rental. Home funds may be used by applicants for acquisition and rehabilitation, new construction of affordable housing. If a home unit, rental unit is not leased to an initial income eligible household within 18 months of the date of project completion, the owner must repay the home funds invested in that unit. Applications for rental activities in conjunction with affordable housing tax credits must submit their applications on or before June 24th, 2022. Home funds may be used for tenant-based rental assistance. That's to help eligible individual households afford housing such as rent, utility costs, security deposits, and utility deposits. CHODO pre-development loans. Home funds may be used by CHODOs for project-specific development assistance intended to fund upfront eligible project expenditures. CHODO operating assistance. Home funds may be used by CHODOs for general operating costs. For the year 2022, CHODO's operating assistance will be awarded at the same time as the award of the CHODO set-aside funds. Also on page 7, we have a listing of the prohibited activities for home funding. The mode of investment of home investment is applicants receiving an award of home funds will receive the funds in the form of a grant, except for CHODOs receiving CHODO pre-development loans. For home buyer contracts, applicants must protect the home funds by loaning the funds to the beneficiaries. A suggested format is a forgivable loan, 0% interest, with the percentage forgiven each year based on the length of the period of affordability. For the protection period of the affordability, OFA will not accept loans forgiven at a more accelerated rate than the applicable prorated percentage based on the period of affordability. OFA has been advised by HUD the participating jurisdictions may not grant home funds to a pass-through entity that will subsequently loan the funds to another entity. For our home program allocation, 10% of our annual allocation is set aside for administrative funds. 25% is set aside for the CHODO. 50% for rental home ownership and 10% for down payment assistance. If there are any funds remaining in the set aside after January 23rd board meeting, trustees meeting, it will then be determined at OFA's discretion whether such funds should be transferred to rental home ownership set aside. CHODO operating assistants will receive no more than 5% of the annual allocation will be available for CHODO operating assistance. Award amounts, inspection fees are not part of the award. Chevelle.
I'm Chevelle Galbraith. I am the grant accounting supervisor. And basically what we are trying to reiterate there is that you will have an amount that is allotted on your written agreement for the inspection fees. But we just want to reiterate that that particular amount will not be given to the grantee. That will be paid directly to the home inspector. And remember, that will be reflected on your written agreement on the first page, but on your budget, it will actually have the contract amount and as well as the inspection fees. It will be part of your budget. So we just want to reiterate that. If you guys have any questions, you can give me a call.
Yeah, so in other words, the inspection fee is not a part of your home funds request. I'm Corey Warren, by the way. Housing allocation.
Can we pause? Can we pause for a moment for any questions, any concerns, anybody having any troubles? Let me check with everybody out here on the internet. We have some comments that the audio is going in and out. It could possibly be our internet connection, but just be sure you're up on the mic if that's the case. Okay, I think we can carry on. Yes.
Award amounts. These are the maximum amounts that you can request. For home buyer rental, the maximum amount you can request is $500,000. For rental activities in conjunction with our tax credit program, there's also a minimum amount, which is $200,000 that can be requested. Down payment assistance programs are limited to $200,000. CHODO pre-development loans, a maximum of $20,000 for 18 months at an interest rate of 1%. And the loans are due and payable on the first day of the 19th month. CHODO operating assistance can be provided up to a maximum of $50,000. You'll also find irrespective of the recommendation of OFA staff. Neither an applicant nor members of the public shall communicate directly or indirectly with the trustees regarding an application under consideration by OFA, except upon notice and opportunity for all parties to participate. OFA's Board of Trustees makes the final decisions regarding home awards. Therefore, appeals of the funding recommendations of OFA staff must be made at the Board of Trustees meeting at which the applications are being considered. Appeals cannot introduce new documentation that was not included with the original application for funds. Any questions?
Any questions out there in Zoom land about this section? Sure, go ahead.
Do you know how much funds are available in the home program this year?
Last year, we received a little over about 8.6 million. We haven't received our 2022 allocation,
Okay.
but we don't
break that
expect it to be less.
All right, thank you.
But we still have funds available in
Oh, okay.
2021.
Oh, okay.
No questions from Zoom right now?
Thanks, Annette. Again, Corey Warman here, housing development allocation analyst. I'll cover the application format and submission. As you know, we no longer take paper applications. It's all electronic now. We do it via Dropbox. One big thing that we wanted to make sure we covered in application format. I know the transition to electronic hasn't been the easiest for everyone, including us. One thing we want to make sure you're mindful of is sometimes these applications, they can be 200, 250 pages. We want to stress bookmarks, making sure you have those tabs accurately lined in that application. That way, it makes it a lot easier for staff to go through each page of the application. And ideally, it makes it easier for you if you need to switch out a page or something like that. So we really want to make sure we stress that today. And another thing in general that we want to stress today is just don't be afraid to ask us questions about any part of the application, really. I know some people have been doing this a long time. Some people haven't been doing it a very long time. It's easy to, keep submitting that app and not really looking at any updates that we made or anything like that. And just maybe a phone call or email to us can save you a lot of heartache whenever you see that preliminary review report that's got some highlight on it. So don't be afraid to ask us questions at all. It's something we really want to stress again today. In terms of application submission, our deadline, we did move it up to 3 p.m. Previously, it was 5. It helped ensure that some staff would be here if you did have any technical difficulties or anything like that. Hopefully, we could catch you before then. And then for program and financial monitoring, I will let Sandra.
Yes, thank you, Corey. Again, I'm Sandra McGugan, Oklahoma Housing Development Compliance Supervisor. And what I just would like to make sure everybody remembers is allocation and compliance and finance. We all communicate. So we do have a capacity. And so I want to talk about letter A on page 14. Applicants with unresolved monitoring findings are ineligible to apply. That is if your findings were not corrected within the correction period, then you are ineligible. If you are still in your correction period, you are eligible for funding. And then we have a capacity measurement system. It is on our website, and it is where we score you. So before you submit your application, you can score yourself and see if you're even going to be eligible for funding based on compliance.
Thank you, Sandra. A few more notes on that. Applicants with 5 or more home rent agreements, 5 or more open home rent agreements, excluding CHODO operating assistance. At the time of that, if you have 5 or more open, you're ineligible to apply. And then applicants with open home rent agreements over 3 years old that are not 100% expended and for supposed documents have not been spent up are eligible to apply as well. And applicants with 3 or more financial findings on 1 or more open home rent agreement are eligible to apply for funding.
No, Corey, I don't.
Well, there you go. On the application information form, attachments A, B, and C, just make sure you fill those out accurately. I know it could be easy to start with that application information form and then you go into putting your entire app together. Maybe some things change throughout that application and you don't come back to the application form to update it. So maybe just review that application form one more time before you put it in the app. That wouldn't hurt. The home application certification, that's fairly straightforward. The HUD 2880 and 424 forms, I know we've had a little bit of issues with those in the last couple of years. Maybe it's not updated, maybe you have an expired form. We try to keep the most up-to-date form on our website. I do know we changed websites recently. Some things didn't carry over. If you do have any issues with those forms, just let staff know. We'd definitely be able to help you out and get you the most updated forms that we have. And I will turn it over to Sandra.
So regarding the affirmative fair housing marketing plan, of course, everybody knows that you have to have it if you have 5 or more home assisted units. But what I want to stress is that we have 3 different forms on our website. We have the multifamily HUD form, we have a single family HUD form, and then we have a form for DPA because we had a problem with awardees wanting to sign the single family one because it talked about selling homes, and you're not selling homes when you're providing DPA assistance. So I want to make that clarification. And I will give it back to you, Corey.
Thanks, Sandra. I'll give it over to Chevelle.
As far as the audit requirements, as you guys know, we are asking that you submit your latest, your current audit with your application. And if you do not have, are not required to actually conduct a full-blown audit, we ask that you send in financial statements, either balance sheets or income statements. And basically, Sandra, I believe said this earlier, we are trying to determine financial capacity when we review the audits. So that is why we need those documents. That's why we need that documentation. And I do believe in the actual application, if you did submit your audit directly to me, you just need to tell us. And so then allocation staff will ask me, have we reviewed it? So just make sure you note that if you're not including with the application that you did put a note if you did submit it to me directly. And let's see, what else do I want to say about the audit? I believe that is it. And again, if there's any issues with the audit, you will be notified by normally myself or Vicky, the grant accountant, if we have any questions about your audit, or if we have any questions about your financial capacity, you will be notified by the finance staff. And after the audit session is match. Okay. So as far as match, we love it, we like it. It is a requirement, it is in the regulation. So I just want to say this, match is required for everyone. But on a better note, we're in a match waiver period right now. That period will be until next year. But because those waivers are just for years, meaning each year based on fiscal year from October to September, and we never, like I said, we never know. We don't have we don't know if we will have a match waiver for the next year. That is why we require match at the time of the application. Also, as far as match, you guys generate match at any point in your affordable housing life cycle. So keep that in mind. I'm going to reiterate that. You can generate match at any time in your affordable housing life cycle. So also with match, I want to say, if you have any questions about match, you can give me a call and we can work through that. Also, if you need match, you can give me a call and we can work through that as well, trying to figure out some eligible forms of match for you. And I know in years past, we had many discussions about match. Right now, we love it so much. And again, it's still a requirement. We have some of our grantees that have quite a bit of match that are willing to maybe share match with some grantees that do not have quite as much. So keep in mind, if you are needing match, please, like I said, give me a call and we can kind of work through those issues, because again, match is a requirement. It is in the regulations. Anybody has any questions about match? Remember, we love it.
Any questions out there from Zoom on match? How you guys doing out there in Zoom? Still there with us? Looks like you are.
Oh, one more
Okay.
thing about match, I just thought about, make sure you guys have your bank match certification. When I send that to you, make sure you review that, make sure the numbers are correct for your contracts. Make sure that I have documented all your match. And if there's any questions, again, just give me a call about your bank match certification.
My name is Timothy Higgs. I'm an allocation analyst. Going over the market analysis on page 17. The market analysis is required for all activities except CHODO, redevelopment loans, and CHODO operating assistance. Down payment assistance applicants applications are required to provide a strong proof of need for the assistance in the area, including a pool of potential buyers. And then on page 18, we list documentation requirements for home activities requiring a market study. For developments of more than 20 units, applicants must submit a third-party independent housing market analysis. And then for developments with 20 or less, a market study must be included that requires these listed line items. And then on page 19, we list the specific requirements for developments with 5 or fewer units. What we want to stress today is just simply to make sure that you read every single line item and address it in your application. Even if something is not applicable, just say that, list that in your application. And then another thing is we just want to make sure that the market study that you provide is specific to the units and to the, the development that you're putting together. To not, reuse old market studies. I think we say in here that it can't be more than 18 months prior to the application submission. Is there any questions regarding the market studies before we move on to description? All right, description, applicants must provide a brief summary of the project that includes all the following that's listed on page 19, 20, and at the top of 21. On this, again, we just want to stress that you go through every single line item, address each point individually. Be sure to use OVA's templates that are provided on our website. And another thing that we've seen recently is that the deed restrictions haven't been matching up with the period of portability as they come later. So we just want to make sure that the period of portability that's promised in the application is reflected on deed restrictions.
And as far as the period of portability, this is just a friendly reminder from the finance staff. That will be provided when the activity is completed in IBIS. And so I will send the period of portability to you. So just FYI, and that is the period of portability that should be used for the lovely deed restriction.
Were there any questions regarding description before we move on?
Any description questions out there from Zoom? Going once, going twice. Nothing so far.
Okay, so development commitments. So all items on the top of page of 21. So item D will be required for all entities. But the most important there is if you're self-managing, like most home applicants are, just please provide the statement just saying that you will be self-managing. If you are partnering with another entity, you will be required to list out the items from A, B, and C. So financing. Applicants must provide a detailed budget that delineates all sources and use of funds for the total home project. So also, please make sure to provide all the commitment letters. Also on your home inspection fees, please do not place that on your home request. You'll want to put that just on the budget. We did have a few questions on the reserves. So we are currently not requiring any minimum amount of reserves. And yeah, just please provide all the necessary costs, including how each cost will be paid for. And with that, that's
We have a
Alicia.
question here.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Questions?
It's from, I'll let you read what it is.
So the question is, we might highlight the need for the site and neighborhood standards and what that is for rental new construction.
The question.
Yeah, just kind of explaining
What exactly is the question? We're seeing might highlight the need for site and neighborhood standards and what that is for rental new construction on page 19.
So letter H on page 19.
What do you mean by highlight the need? Do you want that actual paragraph in bold, or do we need more information about that topic? We're confused about the question. And that's from Wanda. Wanda DeBruler. Just thought it might be useful for applicants to know. So are you just wanting us to maybe put that item there on page 19, Wanda? Okay,
She wants us to talk about it?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm gonna unmute her so she can actually explain herself a little better. Let me go find you, Wanda. Give me 1 second to find you in the group. Mhm. Wanda, on your little mute button, if you'll click it, it'll send me a request to unmute you. Let's see. Wanda, 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 where are you? Looking for Wanda. We've got a lot of people on the Zoom, so that's good. There she is. Okay, Wanda, you are you are unmuted. Wanda, are you
Okay,
there?
thanks. I'm
Okay,
here.
great. Go ahead.
I thought it might be helpful, Daryl, if you guys at least would just point out under the description about site and neighborhood standards for rental new construction, in case any applicants were planning on using home funds for that.
Okay, so she wanted somebody to talk about site and neighborhood standards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll just read this line item here on page, at the bottom. of
Thank
page
you, Wanda.
19, Under description H. For rental new construction only, applicants are responsible for making the determination that proposed sites for new construction meet the requirements in 24 CFR Part 983.57 E 2 and 3 site and neighborhood standards. Applicants for rental new construction activities should carefully review the site and neighborhood standards section of the 2022 home program processes, procedures, and topic guidance. All documentation utilized in making the determination must be included with the application. OPA is responsible to maintain records that document the results of the site and neighborhood standards review. If the documentation does not support the conclusion that a site meets the requirements, additional documentation will be requested.
Did everybody get that? I shared the document just a little bit late, so that's going to be pages 19 and 20.
And these, the guidance can be found on OPA's website.
Oh, yes. Be sure to check the website. It's really a wealth of knowledge. And if you go under developer resources, you can find all the documents that you need.
Okay, next, we're gonna talk about the organizational structure, capacity, and experience section. Oh, I'm sorry, Alicia Thomas, allocation analyst. This is on page 23. All applicants applying for home program funds must have direct experience in the production of housing. So you want to make sure that you look at the documentation requirements and address each one. On item E, I kind of want to talk about that a little bit because I see some errors in that when we get applications. All applicants must provide the certificate showing that they completed all the materials on the HUD Wiser environmental training, which is on the HUD Exchange website. If you're going for points, you need to submit all 14 quizzes showing that you have a passing score of 80%, or you can submit the HUD transcript showing that you got 80% of all the quizzes. So I kind of want to stress that. Any questions on that?
Scooch it up a little.
Can you hear me better now? Okay. Any questions on that?
No questions from Zoom so far? Okay.
Okay, capital needs assessment. A capital needs assessment is required for all rental rehab or acquisition rehab
projects with 26 or more units. And for applications in conjunction with tax credits, it's required no matter the number of units. You can see on page 25, the documentation requirements. Any questions on the capital needs assessment? Okay, move on to readiness. Again, please just pay attention to each documentation requirement and provide, the information that we need for each item. I want to stress to you on, I think it's letter B about the schedule. Please make sure it's no more than 24 months that you start on the date of award. And please also include the closeout. We see a lot of that where you don't start the schedule with the anticipated date of award. That's it. Any questions on readiness?
Okay, Sarah Stevens, Housing Allocation Analyst. We'll be covering number 15, 16, and 17 on pages 26 and 27 for the CHODO certification as well as the CHODO checklist. There really hasn't been any changes or additions on this particular area. Just a reminder to please indicate any organizational changes at the time of application. That's for 15 and 16. Then 17 for nonprofit on page 27. Nonprofit applicants proposing to instruct home assisting housing units for sale. After the unit is sold, any proceeds arising from the sale of the unit or units shall be treated as program income and paid back to OPA, basically stating nonprofit applicants do not retain the proceeds from the sale of the property. And that can be found at the top of page 6. And for these sections, please just be sure to read through each page, each section, and provide the items that are requested. If anyone has any questions.
Hi, my name is Danette Carr. I'll cover the evaluation criteria. We have a listing of what the points of forward leverage. We give instructions on what is considered leverage, documentation requirements. If you're be sure the commitment letters are signed and that they are firm commitments. We have energy efficiency. We ask that we do make substitutions if you first say we're doing acquisition rehab or rehab, and once you purchase the home, maybe an item that you purchase, that you stated was going to be provided in the application is no longer needed, and you're needing to maybe substitute for another item with written permission, and those substitutions are allowed. We have home fair housing training, tenant special needs. On the tenant special needs, we're finding that some applicants will indicate one special population, per se, just homeless or persons with mental or physical disabilities. You really do not have to select one population. You can list just in general all of them. But if you do select one specific population, that is the one that you're going to have to be, that population will have to be served. Storm shelter, on that, we ask the storm shelter must be available to the tenant at all times. The key can't be held by the management company. It must be available to the tenant at all times. And the rest of it is visibility, home investment per unit, our tiebreakers, on CHODO operating assistance. If it's possible, the 2 or more applications for CHODO activities will receive the same score, and OPA will have sufficient program funds to fully fund all activities, but not have sufficient CHODO operating assistance funding to fully fund all operating requests. In that event, the remaining operating assistance will be equally divided between or among the applicants that are requesting operating assistance with their CHODO set aside. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question here. Ms. Deidre Davis, if you state on the application, storm shelter and property is bought with storm shelter on it, does this meet the standard?
Yes,
I would say as long as it covers the 3 items listed there, then yeah.
yes.
So as long as it covers the 3 items listed there on page,
Page 31.
on page 31, there's 3 items. As long as that storm shelter meets those 3 items, then yes. Thank you. Sorry, I have my own little world over here, guys. Okay,
Okay, that concludes the training for the home program.
Actually, if I could, there is one thing that I think is going to be something different for most of you. We have added into the actual application, so it's page 35. At the top, you'll see city, town, county, and then go to the next paragraph. It says, is applicant applying as a CHODO for CHODO activities? If you are, then we are asking that you apply to retain those CHODO proceeds and that you complete and execute attachment G. And then if you are awarded, we will then execute it and send it back to you. And that is going to be your CHODO proceeds reuse agreement. And that way it's a generic, attachment G is generic, G for generic. You're not promising anything other than what the rule states. And that is that you use the first reuse of your proceeds used for home eligible or other low income activities. That's all you're doing. So once you earn those proceeds and you expend those proceeds, then you will sign the amendment. It's called the CHODO proceeds reuse amendment. And that's where you're actually making your promises. And I have those forms. You can contact me if you need to see them. I will email them, and all our contact information is listed on page 10. And then
I do have a question, just one moment. Ms. Wanda DeBruler asked, is that just if the CHODO expects to generate proceeds?
yes.
Yes, Wanda.
And Sherry Pritchard with compliance is going to review some of the major things for home compliance. While we're still on the home.
Hi, I'm Sherry Pritchard. I am with the compliance department. And I'm just gonna, oh, thank you, Sandra, by the way. And I was just gonna reiterate, as far as the deed restriction, it must be filed within 30 days of acquiring the property found in, and that's found in the written agreement. It is on part 3. So those are some things that we find in compliance that not everybody is filing that within the 30 days. Just a few other items that we've come across are some, like, okay, so actual unit cost and size is, we always find those documents missing. We always find the debarment list, which is the SAMs, usually is missing. And these are just some items that we've run across when we're out monitoring. Not everybody, but just some items that come to our attention. Sometimes we don't find the pre-construction meeting data. Sometimes we don't find the work write-up estimates. And these are things that when we're monitoring, these are part of our checklist that we like to make sure that everybody has in the files. And I really think that's really all I have that's in what we consider non-compliance. So I'm going to pass it on back to Jeanette, I believe.
Did anyone have any questions for compliance out in the Zoom world? Any compliance questions? Okay.
Okay, we'll start our training with the National Housing Trust Fund application. If everyone has that available.
What are the questions on home?
Are there any other questions on home? You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. The Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency has been designated by the governor of the state of Oklahoma as the administering agency for the National Housing Trust Fund for the state of Oklahoma. The primary goal of the HTF is to increase and preserve the supply of decent, safe, and sanitary and affordable housing for individuals and families whose incomes do not exceed 30% of area median income or the poverty level, whichever is greater. OFA administers the Housing Trust Fund for the entire state of Oklahoma. Eligible entities include nonprofit developers, for-profit developers, and state recipients. Eligible activities, Housing Trust Fund must be partnered with another federal, state, or local funding program. Applications proposing to use housing trust funds only will not be accepted. Eligible activities include rental, new construction, and rental acquisition rehabilitation. Applicants receiving an award of HTF funds will receive the funds in the form of a no-interest loan. The loan may be forgivable at the end of the term if applicable and necessary for the financial viability of the project. The loan will be a minimum of 30 years and will be as long as the period of the affordability. Potential awardees are responsible for filing a mortgage, promissory note, and the regulatory agreement along with the deed restriction. A checklist is provided in the application for reference. The Housing Trust Fund Program Fund allocation for the year 2021, we received a little over 5.2 million. We received an email, I believe today or in the last couple of days, where Congress has actually increased the amount of funding for this program. So we are expecting more, a little more, not exactly the amount. We don't know the amount, but it should be more than the 5.2 million we received in 2021. Out of that allocation, 10% will be set aside for administrative funds and the remainder for rental development. The amount of housing trust funds to be allocated to an eligible project will be limited to the amount of funds available at the time of application. The amount of housing trust funds to be allocated to the same project for an operating reserve will be no more than $350,000. Operating reserve funds cannot be used on units receiving project-based rental assistance. We also list several websites for as a resource. If you have any questions regarding the National Housing Trust Fund allocation, please contact staff. Our names, phone numbers, and email addresses are listed. We ask that you email multiple staff to ensure that you receive a response. If you have any questions regarding the environmental review process, please contact Alicia Thomas, Edgar Silva, Sarah Stevens, and Timothy Hicks. The application process: an application must be from an eligible entity or an eligible project. To be considered for funding, a housing trust fund application must satisfy all threshold requirements. An applicant applying for the housing trust funds should thoroughly review their application prior to submission. OFA will begin accepting applications May 13th of 2022. OFA will only accept applications that are submitted through Dropbox. A Dropbox link may be requested by contacting any of the specialists listed on the previous page. Instructions for using the Dropbox are also included on the OFA webpage and at the end of this application as an attachment. The deadlines have been updated, so if the application is posted on the website now does consider the deadline, list the deadlines for submitting applications and at what board meeting. Applications proposing to incorporate the use of housing trust funds with our tax credit program will, if successful, be given a contingent award pending the outcome of the tax credit application. The Housing Trust Fund application must reference the tax credit application. The contingency will be based upon satisfaction of the tax credit program application requirements and tax credit award. Any discrepancies between the two applications must be resolved, which may include staff requesting additional documentation and/or clarification for the Housing Trust Fund application. For the first round of applications, those applications in conjunction with tax credits will be considered with the tax credit applications for second funding period of 2022. If there's a second or third round of applications, those applications will only be considered with tax credit applications for the first funding period of 2023. Oklahoma Housing Trust Fund applications proposing to incorporate the use of Housing Trust Fund must be contingently approved before the National Housing Trust Fund award. A National Housing Trust Fund application will not be contingently approved based on a future Oklahoma Housing Trust Fund award. OFA cannot, under any circumstances, commit housing trust funds to a project without a firm financial commitment from all other funding sources. All applications will be considered and acted upon by the OFA Board of Trustees at one of the regularly scheduled meetings. Unless otherwise posted, the meetings will be at 10 a.m. and the meeting place will be 100 Northwest 63rd Street, Oklahoma City, 73116. But as I mentioned earlier, our building is under rehab, and we're meeting at the Holiday Inn located next door. OFA's Board of Trustees makes the final decisions regarding award of program funds. Therefore, appeals of the funding recommendations of OFA staff must be made at the Board of Trustees meeting at which the applications are considered. Appeals cannot introduce new documentation that was not included with the original application for funds. Again, we just really want to stress that if you have any questions, please contact staff, and we're here to help.
Yeah, were there any questions?
I don't see any Zoom questions right now, no.
Okay, all right, thank you, Jeanette. On application submission, very similar to home here. We no longer take paper applications. It is all via electronic submission now, so just be mindful of that. Again, on an HTF application as well, just be mindful of those bookmarks and tabs and make sure that they're being bookmarked accurately in accordance with your application. In terms of the application form attachment A, B, and C, like we said before, just ensuring that it's easy to do that application form first, to start your application, and then as you go through your application, you can change it, you can reduce the number of units. Maybe you reduce your request after you do your financials and you don't go back to update that application form. So just making sure that that's finalized before you submit it. And for attachments A, B, and C, those are all fairly straightforward, making sure that you sign and notarize them as well. On the 2880 and 424 forms, again, we just want to make sure that you're using the most up-to-date form that's available, none that are expired, of course. And again, we try to keep those up to date on our website as much as we can. But if you run into any issues with those forms, don't be afraid to shoot us an email. And like Danette said, don't be afraid to ask us any questions with regard to anything in the application. We are here to help you. We would much rather answer that question via an email or a phone call before you submit as opposed to after. And with that, I'll throw it to Sandra for the affirmative fair housing marketing plan.
So it is. Thank you, Corey. So it's basically the same thing as home. Really, generally, the only affirmative fair housing marketing plan that is going to be required is going to be the multifamily. However, we went ahead and put out the single family and the DPA just to get it uniform and consistent so that everybody knows that they're there. So the same thing, it only applies if there are 5 or more assisted units. And I think I am throwing it. Oh, I don't know, who am I throwing it to?
You
Chevelle?
it to me, Sandra. This is audit time. Similar to the home program in the National Housing Trust Fund applicant, we require an audit. Please make sure you submit your most current audit. Again, if you do not have or not required to submit an audit, please submit financial statements so we can determine your financial capacity. That requirement is the same. And also, if you send your audit or your financial statements in separately, meaning directly to the finance staff, myself or Vicky, please note that in your application so that the analyst will know that the audit has been reviewed outside of the application submission. That's basically it for the audit. There's no match in National Housing Trust Fund.
Any questions on audit out there in Zoom land? You guys awake? All right, moving on. No questions here.
For program and financial monitoring, we actually have not yet developed a capacity monitoring system for National Housing Trust Fund. So it's in here again to be consistent, and we can at any time, but we have to get enough applications and enough awards made and then to get in operating and get it compliance monitored, and then we can do the capacity. So it's in there again to be consistent, but if you have any questions at any time to see if you're going to be eligible, not eligible, just contact one of us.
Okay, on to the market analysis, similar to home, the HTF market study is required for all developments. All developments up to 20 units. Market study must be included with the application. Applicants may perform their own scientifically based housing market analysis if they have 20 units or less. Such studies must fully describe the methodology used and sources of all data and information. Again, we'd just like to stress to use the market study specific to the development that's being applied for, and that it cannot be older than 18 months. And for developments of 20 units or more than 20 units, applicants must submit a third-party independent housing market analysis. That applies to HDF applications that are in conjunction with tax credits. And then the study submitted must meet all requirements in both the affordable housing tax credits and HDF programs for those. And then those requirements are listed on page 10, and then beginning at the bottom of page 10, the requirements for developments with 5 or fewer units. The market study will be limited to those requirements listed there. Is there any questions regarding the market study for the HDF program?
No questions for market study.
Moving on to description. Same thing as said before, just make sure that you address every single line item listed here. Be sure to use OPUS templates that are posted on our website, and same goes for the period of affordability. Just please make sure that it matches the prescription there. Any questions on description? So I can point out again, the site neighborhood standards also apply as well. And those instructions, guidance can be found on those websites as well.
Okay, so moving on to affordable rents. Please make sure to use the published rents and income limits. They are published by HUD, but you can find them in our website. Moving on to financing, again, please provide a detailed budget that delineates all sources and uses. Please also make sure that you're providing a firm commitment letter with a signature. And that's about it on that end. Any questions on?
No questions so far from anyone out there in Zoom. Don't be shy. If you've got questions, send them over to me.
Okay, moving on to organizational structure, capacity, and experience. This is very much like home. Just please make sure on page 13 where it's talking about the documentation requirements that you submit information for each line item, please. Any questions on that section?
Okay, so for nonprofit, which is on page 14, this entire nonprofit section has been added. One important thing to remember is to please be sure to provide your IRS letter, which verifies that you're a qualified nonprofit organization. And then kind of skipping through some of these pages, 15 through 20, we're basically getting into the evaluation criteria as well as points and scoring. It's been a little bit of confusion regarding the scoring. Please remember that once you submit your application, you cannot change your score. On page 19, just a reminder about the storm shelters. We have had some situations where only one person, maybe the manager, has access to the storm shelter. All tenants must have access to the storm shelter 24 hours a day. Page regarding the tiebreaker on page 20, the first priority will be given to developments who are not using any other OHFA funding sources. That has been a change or an update, if you will, to the tiebreaker section. Going through these pages 20 through 29, there weren't any additional changes or items of concern that we're aware of, but if anyone has any questions, please do so this time. And then if there are no questions, we'll go to page 30. Regarding attachment 16, the tenant special needs, just where you have the home list and the persons with mental or physical disabilities, there's no need to check any of those boxes unless you're 100% sure of your choice there. Just be sure to please sign it and date the bottom of that form. Again, for each of these sections, just please be sure to read through each area and provide the items that we requested. If anyone has any questions, you may do so at this time.
Hi, my name is Celeste Johnson. I'm a compliance specialist. I just want to remind everyone that for National Housing Trust Fund, you'll have an annual report that's due, just like home, every year. It's due February 28th, which was yesterday. So if you don't have them in, get it in. And then just a reminder, in National Housing Trust Fund, there's no utility allowance and there's no student rolls, so that's great. And then I just want to stress that the period of affordability, a deed restriction must be filed within 30 days of the issuance of the release of funds by HUD and prior to the funds being drawn down. So just want to remind everyone about that on National Housing Trust Fund. You'll also have rent increases just like home for National Housing Trust Fund. And with DeForest coming out to monitor National Housing Trust Fund, there is a guidance checklist that we'll send you. It's very useful. It'll give you preparation for what we will look at when we come out to review. So that information will be readily available for us. That is pretty similar to the same process of home. Just want to remind you to make sure that you have your work write-up estimates with signature and dates on those. Something you see a lot of cost estimates that are just kind of penciled in, and we want to see a little bit more documentation on those items. That's what's home as well. So I think that is about it. Is there anything else, Andrew, that you think we need to remind?
I think that is it. If you have any other questions regarding it.
Any questions out there about compliance? Nope, looks like we're good. Oh, we've got a question here. Okay, the question is, how do we file a deed restriction before drawing funds if the app is for acquisition?
So for any National Housing Trust Fund project, i.e. written agreement, like compliance says, a deed restriction is required, and we're asking that you file that deed restriction when you receive the written agreement. So your original date will be the beginning date of the written agreement, and then you will amend the deed restriction with the actual period of affordability. So hopefully that clarifies that. So that is what we're saying when we say file the deed restriction in the beginning when you receive the written agreement.
Does that clarify the answer for you, Wanda? Okay, sure. You can visit with any staff later. She wasn't quite clear on that, but she's going to get with somebody directly. We have another question. Is there any leftover funds carried over from 2021? Mr. Gabriel Woodman?
Yes, we have 1.5 million. We released a NOVA about the end of November, December. Those applications were due today. So I believe we received one application for those funds, but we, as I said, the deadline was today, so we have not processed the application.
Okay. All right, any other questions out there? And just to remind everybody, you can call anytime and talk with the list of people we had up there. Yes?
I'm gonna touch on some items that I think we kind of skipped. So let's go back to threshold on page 14 on the capital needs assessment, which is basically the same as home. You know, any acquisition rehab or rental rehab with 26 or more units has to have a capital needs, or all applications in conjunction with tax credits have to have a capital needs assessment regardless of the number of units. And then on readiness, same thing as home. Please make sure on your schedule that you include the date of award and closeout. And then let's move on to National Housing Trust Fund environmental training. Please submit your certificate showing that you completed all the materials. And if you're going for points, of course, show a passing grade of 80% on the 14 quizzes, or a transcript showing a passing grade of 80%. Any questions?
Nope, no questions here.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for attending. One thing that I do want to emphasize is, and it's already been said before, but please call us and ask questions. It's better to do that than it is to just kind of guess at what you think the answer might be and then send it in, because then we'd have to send it back to you and say, please explain, et cetera. So it's really just easier just to call us if you have any kind of questions. That's what we're here for. You're not bugging us. You can call us multiple times. There's no limit on the number of times you can call. And we are here to help. We appreciate all of you that help get these funds distributed and help get housing produced for people in the state of Oklahoma. That's what we're all about. That's what we're trying to do. And we enjoy the partnership with each and every one of you. And we're here to help. So thank you, everybody, for participating today. We're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Job, everybody.